May 3 road to Krasnov convoy moved slowly. Pavement had cracked open in jagged lines as if the earth had tried to scream. A stretch near the old grain silos was covered in salt, though none of the soldiers could explain why. Birds avoided the sky above us, flying in nervous bursts around invisible arcs. Radiation meters spiked without warning. A checkpoint set up by local militia was found abandoned. Bullet holes marked the windows. In the back, the corpses of 3 dogs lay stretched unnaturally thin, as though their bones had been elongated. One soldier vomited and refused to continue. A lone figure approached from the wheat. He was unarmed, wearing civilian clothing but covered in what looked like surgical tubing. When hailed, he stopped, tilted his head, and asked, "What day is it?" When told it was May 3rd, he smiled. "Good, then I'm not too late." Then he walked past them into the mist. He did not respond to further questioning. May 3rd, Lyubech Lyubech Stadium was no longer visible. A heat haze shimmered around it, distorting light. Anyone who tried to get closer reported splitting headaches and sudden nosebleeds. The department store had collapsed inward, glass melting like wax. Dogs gathered around the perimeter but would not enter. One soldier tried to drive forward. His tires liquefied before reaching the front steps. We heard a message over an unlisted radio frequency, a woman's voice saying in perfect monotone, "We are inside now. Don't come looking." No origin. Nearby, a refugee group led by an ex-forester named Immerich flagged down the convoy. His people had converted a lumber camp into a neutral settlement, accepting soldiers and stalkers alike. He asked for no allegiance, only silence. Denisovich nodded. "That's the most anyone can promise now." We passed a faded billboard at the town's edge, once an ad for milk. Now the words had warped. "You are always meant to return here," as if the zone was writing its own propaganda. Later that evening, just before midnight, one of Immerich's scouts reported something unusual, a dense fog rolling in unnaturally fast along the southeast road. The convoy halted. Through the haze, the outline of a burning school bus emerged, but the fire had no smoke. The bus was intact, windows melted, rubber tires still smoldering, but there was no source of ignition. Inside, faint silhouettes appeared, the ghostly impressions of children, a teacher, and a driver. No bodies, no heat, only the illusion of fire. Private Levin approached the door. As he touched the handle, a loud shriek echoed not from metal, but from deep within the fog itself. The soldiers fell back. Then came the whispers. Broken Russian. Urgent. Echoing. Der. Zhao's Padalshot. Togo. Chito Pomnit. Te Baya. Figure appeared motionless at first. A humanoid, skin charred black, glowing faintly from within. Smoke rose from its back in quiet tendrils. It was the burnt one. The group of soldiers and the hunter from Immerich stood frozen. Then it moved. The burnt one turned its head mechanically, unnaturally, and looked directly at them. Private Levin shouted, raising his rifle. But before he could fire, the burnt one lunged. Gunfire erupted. Screams followed. Back at the camp, Immerich and Denisovich were near the convoy trucks when the echoes arrived, draped gunshots. A soldiers, panicked, screamed for help, then silence swallowed by the fog. Immerich's face tightened, eyes locked on the dark horizon. "That's too close," he muttered. Denisovich raised a radio, trying to make contact. No response. "What did they walk into?" one of the guards asked. From the fog, a final burst of sound rang out, another scream. This one cut short, choked. The radio hissed, then nothing. They never returned. Denisovich and Immerich immediately ordered a reinforcement unit to investigate. Within minutes, another squad armed with flares advanced into the same route where the screams had originated. They moved cautiously, weapons raised, eyes scanning the unnatural mist. But when they arrived, the road was empty. There was no bus, no bodies, no signs of a fight, not even shell casings. The thick fog lingered, but the fire was gone. It was as if nothing had happened at all. The reinforcements searched the area thoroughly. The only things they found were the old mark of fire so aged that looked as if the blaze had happened years ago, and a single orange suitcase resting near it. There were no fresh tracks, no signs of violence, just those two remnants, untouched. By time yet clearly out of place, they returned to camp with shaken expressions. No one spoke for a long time. The captain who led the reinforcement group immediately sought out Denisovich and Immerich. Standing before the campfire, he removed his helmet face, pale, eyes hollow. "We found nothing but a scorch mark and an orange suitcase," he said. But the moment we stepped into that fog, it was like something was breathing through us, watching. The air felt too heavy. Some of the men heard whispering again. I couldn't make out the words, but it knew us. Denisovich glanced toward Immerich, whose face had turned grim. The silence between the three men spoke louder than any report. "Understood," Denisovich said at last. "Tell your men to rest, but keep your rifles nearby," Immerich added. That wasn't just a trap. That was a memory, and it's still hunting. Denisovich ordered his men to take a brief rest and assist Immerich's patrols in securing the perimeter. "We hold the line. The civilians come first," he said. While some soldiers slumped near the campfire in exhaustion, others quietly joined. Immerich's men in quiet patrols through the edges of the mist, rifles in hand, eyes searching the shifting dark. Meanwhile, Mukraha outskirts, not far from the unfolding nightmare in the fog. The fortified camp of Mukraha carried on like a parasite thriving in rot. The bandit group, known for its cruelty and opportunism, had begun launching nighttime raids deeper into the outskirts. They traded in stolen rations, stolen gear, and rumors dot inside the broken-down farmhouse they called headquarters. Laughter echoed between cigarette smoke and the rattle of vodka bottles. Guards leaned lazily against makeshift barricades, their rifles casually slung as they watched the road through rusted metal slits. Their leader, a sharp-eyed thug named Sark, played cards beside a disassembled PKM. Across from him, a scout reported seeing flickering lights near Belaya the night before. "Ghosts," someone muttered. Sark grinned. "No, Prophet. If the zone eats another convoy, that's more for us." No one noticed that one of their dogs hadn't returned from its patrol. No one noticed that the air smelled slightly burnt, and no one heard the whisper on Idotramas from Mukruhalata that night. Around a dented oil drum fire, the Mukruha bandits began to trade stories. Word had reached them through frightened traders and a drunk scout rumors that the people of Belaya, the peaceful refugee commune, were more than they seemed. "They're a cult," one of the younger thugs insisted. "They don't preach, no, but I heard they worship the zone. Let it choose who lives and who burns." Sark leaned forward, staring at the flames. "I've heard that too. Something about voices. The zone talks to them, tells them what's coming." Another man scoffed, pouring vodka into his cup. "That's just swamp gas and paranoia. But if they are listening to the zone, maybe that's why the anomalies don't kill them. Or maybe," Sark said quietly, "they don't want to be saved." The wind howled through the broken rafters. None of them spoke for a while after that. May 4, road to Crossnote. First light, Denisovich gathered his officers. "We move at 0800, he said. "Civilians get loaded first. We stay close to Immerich's camp perimeter for as long as we can, then break east toward Krasno." The soldiers moved efficiently, despite the fatigue in their eyes. Campfires were stamped out. The wounded were helped into the rear trucks. Immerich stood by, arms crossed, nodding in quiet solidarity. Before departure, Denisovich walked the perimeter one last time. He spoke briefly with every posted guardsman from his own squad, some from Immerich's, ensuring they understood the route, the signals, and the fallback orders. "We lose no one," he repeated. "Not today." As the convoy began to roll forward, wheels crunching over broken stone and pine needles, a low rumble echoed from somewhere deep within the zone. It wasn't thunder. Just before they rounded the ridge out of sight, Immerich raised a hand in silent farewell. Denisovich nodded once. The road to Krasno awaited. May 4th approached to Krasno not long after leaving the outskirts of Immerich's camp. The convoy came upon a strange sight. Rows of tents, scientific instruments half buried in the mud, and men in white suits marked with faded Soviet insignia. It was the Shlimovich Science Camp, an expeditionary research team set up near the edge of the zone's newer fault lines. A tall, gaunt man stepped forward to greet them. He introduced himself simply as Dr. Yuri Shlimovich, a lead anomaly physicist and the camp's namesake. His team, made up of biologists, mathematicians, and former military personnel, had been observing the zone's behavior from a distance, tracking the pulse emissions, cataloging mutated fauna, and recording what they called temporal anomalies. Denisovich exchanged credentials and asked if the camp could assist with medical supplies and information. Dr. Shlimovich nodded. "We've seen your convoy from afar. We knew you'd eventually pass. You're lucky we had a clean pocket in the emissions last night." But don't delay. Krasno is not untouched. The civilians were allowed a short break. Soldiers were given flasks of bitter tea, made from something the scientists called zone-filtered herbs. It helped with nausea, they claimed. Some didn't touch it. Dr. Slimovich pulled Denisovich aside as the convoy reassembled. There's a pattern to the anomalies. Captain, he whispered, a rhythm, like breathing. The zone isn't expanding randomly, it's choosing. Denisovich didn't respond. The engines roared to life. The road to Krasno twisted deeper into the zone. Dr. Slimovich's warning still echoed in Denisovich's ears as the trucks rolled on. He turned back briefly, seeing the faint silhouette of the science camp fade into morning fog. A soldier from the lead vehicle called out, another obstruction ahead. The convoy slowed. In the distance stood a massive power relay tower, bent at its center like it had melted and drooped under invisible weight. Its cables hung in perfect arcs, untouched by wind, humming softly as if vibrating to some unknown frequency. Denisovich raised his hand to halt the convoy. A few scouts, rifles ready, moved forward cautiously. The Geiger counters clicked faster, and then, silence. "Do you hear that?" asked one soldier. "No birds," another replied. From the far side of the tower came a figure in a white coat, an other scientist, waving a flare, his expression panicked. "Don't stop, move," he shouted. "It's coming back." Before Denisovich could respond, a wave of pressure rolled over them, an invisible shock that made their eardrums pop and knees weaken. The power lines above twisted like vines. "Go, full throttle," Denisovich barked. Engines revved, and the convoy surged forward, dust billowing in all directions. The scientist was pulled aboard by a rear truck. Whatever was returning didn't follow. Once clear of the tower's shadow, the convoy pressed forward, rattled but intact. The new scientist introduced himself as Mikhail Rishatov, one of Slimovich's anomaly mathematicians. "That tower marks the edge," he said between gasps. "Of what?" a soldier asked. "Of its memory," Rishatov replied. "Everything beyond it. The zone remembers too well." They didn't look back, and Krasno was just ahead. Captain Denisovich, sitting at the front of the lead truck, scanned the tree line as the fog began to thin. Behind him, the column of civilians, tired, hungry, but alive, pressed on. He could see the first ruins of Krasno rising in the distance, rooftops sagging, rusted antennas, the dark shapes of abandoned vehicles overturned on cracked asphalt. Eyes open, Denisovich called out, "We're not there yet." A radio crackled. "Captain, movement 10 o'clock. Single figure." He grabbed the handset. "Hold formation. I want to on foot, to flank and identify." Within minutes, the figure resolved into a scavenger, armed, filthy, draped in mismatched winter clothing. He raised his hands. "I saw the bus," he said. "I saw it burn and come back." Denisovich narrowed his eyes. "We're near the dry creek bed east of the post office, but it's gone now. Only smoke and a shoe, orange child's size." The captain didn't speak. He waved his hand. "Bring him in. Feed him, then post extra guards. Whatever's ahead, don't trust it to stay dead." As the last rays of the sun caught the ruins of Krasno, something stirred deeper within. The mist thickened again, though the sky above remained eerily clear. The fog didn't roll in, it rose, seeping up from the ground, like breath from the zone itself. Captain Denisovich stepped off the truck and looked east. He didn't like how quiet it had become. Birds still hadn't returned. Even the wind seemed held in suspense. "We make camp here," he said. 2-hour rotation. I want teams watching the perimeter, and no one walks alone." From the rear of the convoy, a low-grown echo-drusted metal shifting, one of the civilians screamed. Denisovich turned fast, rifle raised, but there was nothing there, just one of the trucks cooling down, its engine ticking, or so it seemed. Then a child's voice whispered through the fog. A chill swept over the men. From a rooftop nearby, a crow landed and immediately burst into blackened ash. The zone wasn't just expanding anymore, it was waking up. Then, from the rear ranks of the resting convoy, came a cry, shocked, fearful, and small. A child had gone missing. Shouts rang out as soldiers and civilians scrambled through the fog-laced trees, their boots sinking into the moist earth. Just ahead, the faint sound of skittering echoed, then multiplied. A chittering mass of legs and hunger. Spiders, not normal ones, etched the size of a dog, their bodies bloated and twitching with unnatural rhythm. Contact left. A soldier yelled, Suppressors hissed as the men fired controlled bursts. The spiders surged forward, dozens at a time. Crimson eyes blinked from shadowed brush. One soldier was pulled down screaming. Another lit a flare, casting flickering red across the chaos. Denisovich ordered fallback lines. Protect the civilians. Contain the breach. It took nearly 10 minutes of brutal combat before the creatures finally scattered, crawling back into the darkness as suddenly as they had come. The child was found, shivering behind a rusted fridge, unharmed but in shock. When asked what happened, she only said, "They were whispering my name." Captain Denisovich tightened the strap on his weapon, scanning the tree line. The zone was no longer content to be observed. He immediately ordered his men to fall back, everyone on the bus. "Now," Denisovich shouted. Soldiers scrambled to cover the civilians as they clambered into the vehicles. The chittering grew louder. Suppressed gunfire cracked from the bus windows as troops inside fired at the encroaching spiders. The engines groaned to life, and the convoy began to move slow at first, then picking up speed as the last door slammed shut outside. Dozens of spider corpses lay twitching, but many more skittered after the departing buses, only to halt just at the edge of the mist. They watched, silently, unmoving.